You're worthless. My daughter-in-law's words cut through the dining room like a razor, instantly silencing all conversation around the table. Cutlery froze in midair, glasses froze in the hands of the guests, and I felt dozens of eyes on me. My own son lowered his head, avoiding my gaze. 58 years of life, 3 decades as a respected school principal in the community, and now here I was, humiliated in my own home, during what was supposed to be a wedding anniversary celebration. The cake my wife had lovingly prepared still waited untouched in the kitchen. The silence that followed seemed eternal. I could smell the meat sauce mingling with the overly sweet perfume of Amanda, my daughter-in-law. She remained standing, wearing that red dress I always thought inappropriate for family gatherings, and her eyes fixed on me betrayed no regret. My wife, Conceição, shoulders trembled slightly beside me. She had always hated confrontation. The ticking of the wall clock I inherited from my father seemed to echo like a drum announcing my public execution. "Daddy." My son finally broke the silence, but his voice was weak, submissive. I recognized that tone. It was the same one I'd used as a boy when confronting my own father. On the rare occasions I'd tried to defend him from the public humiliations he suffered, as the only black man in a leadership position at the factory where he worked. History was repeating itself before my eyes, but this time I was the old man who needed defending. I swallowed hard, tasting the bitter taste of familiar injustice. I stood up slowly, my knee joints protesting with a pain that seemed amplified by the awkward silence. "Excuse me," was all I could manage before walking toward my office. I noticed my hands were shaking slightly. Behind me I heard the indistinct murmur of renewed conversations, as if my departure were the signal everyone was waiting for to return to normal. But what broke my heart was hearing Amanda's laugh, loud and carefree, as if she'd just told a particularly funny joke. I closed the office door and sat in the worn leather armchair I'd bought when I became principal of Machado de Assis School 20 years ago. The photographs on the walls seemed to be watching me, my younger self, full of dreams, alongside politicians and educators at the inauguration of the community library I'd helped found in the neighborhood. I was worthy. I always had been. But how had those words managed to cut so deeply? Why was I, Antonio Ferreira dos Santos, who had faced institutional racism for decades and paved the way for other black educators in the municipal school system, now hiding in my own office, trembling like a scolded child? That's when I noticed the desk drawer slightly open. Something wasn't right. I always kept that drawer locked. It was where I kept important documents, including my will and the house registration, which, against the lawyer's advice, I had also put in my son's name after his marriage to Amanda. I walked over and pulled the drawer all the way open. My heart raced when I realized the folder containing the house documents was different, thinner. I opened it with trembling fingers and confirmed papers were missing. But before I could investigate further, I heard a soft knock on the door. "Dad?" It was the voice of my daughter, Louisa. Unlike her brother, she had followed in my footsteps in education, becoming a university professor of literature. "May I come in?" I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure before answering. "Come in, daughter." I tried to smile as she opened the door, but I could tell from her eyes that I wasn't convincing. Louisa has always been overly observant, a trait she inherited from me and honed with years of literary analysis. What was that out there? She closed the door behind her and approached. Her navy blue dress contrasted with her shiny black skin, always elegant and understated, so different from the flamboyant Amanda. "Are you okay?" I wanted to say yes, that everything was fine, that these were just the foolish words of a woman dissatisfied with life. But when I opened my mouth, something unexpected happened. "No," I confessed, feeling a stubborn tear escape the corner of my eye. "I'm not okay, Louisa." What surprised me even more was what came out of my mouth next. "I think I'm losing control of my own house." I pointed to the open drawer and the disorganized documents. "Someone has been going through the house's papers, and I suspect I know who." Louisa's eyes widened, but not in surprise. In confirmation. "Dad?" She hesitated, biting her lower lip. "There's something I need to show you, but not here." She glanced at the door apprehensively. "What I saw on Bruno's phone yesterday when he was in the shower. I think it explains a lot about Amanda's behavior." At that moment, the hubbub in the dining room grew louder. We could hear Amanda's voice, loud and imperious, arguing with someone. "Let's get out of here." Louisa suggested, pointing to the back door that led to the garden. "We can go to my apartment. It's important that you see this out of her sight." There was something in Louisa's urgent tone that made me stand up immediately. I grabbed my coat hanging behind the door, the remaining documents from the drawer, and followed my daughter out the back door, like a fugitive in my own home. The garden I'd tended for decades, every orchid, every fern lovingly tended, now served as my escape route. As we walked quickly to Louisa's car parked on the side street, I glanced back one last time. Through the living room window I saw Amanda gesturing excitedly, her red dress a bloodstain against the white walls. Beside her my son seemed smaller, diminished. "Get in, Dad." Louisa opened the passenger door. "There's more to this story than you think." Louisa's apartment was only 15 minutes away, but the drive felt endless. My mind raced with possibilities. What could Amanda be up to? Why hadn't my own son defended me? And what had Louisa discovered that was so important it couldn't be discussed at home? "You know I never liked Amanda." Louisa broke the silence as we waited at a traffic light. The reflection of the red lights danced across her tense face. "But I thought it was just a personality mismatch. Now I know it's much worse." The tone of his voice alarmed me. "What do you mean?" Louisa gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. "She's planning something, Dad. Something big. And it involves the house, your possessions, everything you've built." We arrived at Louisa's building and walked up to the third floor in silence. My daughter had lived alone since her divorce 3 years ago. Her apartment was a reflection of her, organized, filled with books and with family photographs everywhere. Except of Amanda, I noticed. "Sit down." She pointed to the couch as she turned on her laptop. "I'll show you what I found." Louisa typed quickly, accessing an online drive. "Yesterday Bruno came here to bring me some books I'd borrowed. He left his phone charging in the kitchen while he went to the bathroom. A notification popped up on the screen. It was an email from Amanda to someone named Ricardo. She paused, looking directly into my eyes. The subject was, "Plan for the old man." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "The old man?" "You, Dad." Louisa turned the computer screen to me. I know I shouldn't have, but I opened the email on his phone and forwarded it to myself. And what I read, well, you need to see for yourself. The screen displayed a series of emails between Amanda and someone identified as Rico Hearts. The first email was dated 3 months ago. "Rico, I did it. The old man finally put Bruno's name on the house deed. It was easier than I thought. All I had to do was mention that we were thinking about having kids and needed financial security. He practically ran to the registry office. The answer came the same day. 'My love, you're brilliant. Now we just need the next step. How long do you think it will take to convince Bruno to sell his share?' I felt a chill run down my spine when I read Amanda's response. "That won't be necessary. I'm working on a better plan. If we can make the old man seem incapable of managing his own assets, Bruno can take over as the only son living with him. His annoying sister is too far away to interfere. Then it's only a matter of time before I convince him to sell everything, and we can start our life together. No one needs to know about us until then." There were dozens of emails following the same tone, detailing how Amanda planned to discredit me to family and friends, how she was hiding money in a separate account, and how this Ricardo guy, whom I'd never heard of, was eager to get rid of that old house and build something that would actually make a profit on the land. "But what about your brother?" I managed to ask, my throat feeling dry. "Does Bruno know about this?" Louisa shook her head. "From what I understand from the emails, he has no idea. Amanda completely manipulates him. Look at this one from 2 weeks ago. The idiot believes everything I say. Yesterday I mentioned that his father seemed confused about where he left the car, and he's already worried. I'm planting the seed of doubt. Soon everyone will think it's natural when we suggest that the old man can no longer handle his own affairs." My hands trembled as I read those words. I vividly remembered the day I'd forgotten where I'd parked. Amanda had insisted on taking me to a different mall than usual, in an area of town I rarely frequented. Naturally, it took me a few minutes to locate the car in the massive parking lot. She'd turned this into evidence of senility. "There's more," Louisa continued, scrolling to show more recent emails. "This one's from yesterday. Everything is ready for tomorrow. During the party, I'll tease him until he loses his composure. I've already spoken to some strategic guests who will testify to how unstable he is. After that, it will be easy to convince Bruno that his father needs help managing the estate. Rico, we're almost there. In a few months, that house will be ours, and we can get rid of this whole charade. I can't wait to wake up next to you every day without having to make excuses for Bruno." His response made me even more disgusted. "My love, you're brilliant. Meanwhile, I'm already talking to developers interested in the land. That location is pure gold. You could build at least 3 buildings there. We're talking millions, darling. Millions. And all thanks to your intelligence and the stupidity of your husband and the old man." A weight settled on my chest. It wasn't just Amanda's betrayal that hurt. It was the realization of how easily manipulated, how blind my own son had become. I, who had dedicated my life to education, who had faced structural racism to ensure my children had every opportunity denied to me, now saw the fruits of that effort turn against me in the cruelest way. "We need to show this to Bruno," he said finally. Louisa sighed, closing her laptop. "It's not that simple, Dad. Bruno is completely bewitched by her. I showed him some of those emails last night, and you know what he said? That I was making it all up out of jealousy, that I've always hated Amanda." She shook her head, unconvinced. He didn't even want to read it to the end. He said I was manipulating the messages. I stood up, feeling a mixture of anger and determination I hadn't experienced in years. "Then we need more concrete proof. Something that even Bruno can't deny." "I've already thought about that." Louisa opened a drawer and took out a small device. "It's a recorder. I plan to place it somewhere strategically in the house today during the party, but after that scene..." She looked at me with concern. "What are we going to do, Dad?" The question hung in the air for a moment. I looked out the apartment window, observing the city that had been my home all my life. The lights were beginning to come on against the darkening sky. I thought of my wife, Conceição, probably worried about my sudden disappearance. I thought of my son, blindly in love with a woman who was cheating on him and plotting to destroy our family. And I thought of Amanda, confident that her plan was working perfectly. That's when an idea began to form. "Louisa," he said slowly, "remember when you were little and I told you stories about your grandfather, about how he used his wisdom to overcome those who underestimated him as a black man in a position of power?" Louisa nodded, a gleam of understanding appearing in her eyes. "You always said that the best way to defeat an enemy is to use their own weapons against them." "Exactly." I felt a renewed energy coursing through me. "Amanda thinks I'm just a senile old man, easy to manipulate. How about we use that to our advantage?" Over the next 2 hours, we hatched a plan. It wouldn't be petty revenge. It would be justice. A way to expose the truth not just to Bruno, but to everyone. Amanda had chosen to publicly humiliate me. I would choose the same stage to reveal who she really was. "We need to go back," he said, checking his watch. "Your mother must be worried." "Are you sure you want to face this now?" Louisa looked apprehensive. "I've never been so sure in my life," I replied, standing up. "Besides, I need to get something from my office that will be crucial to our plan." On the way back, we called Conceição. As expected, she was distressed by our disappearance. I vaguely explained that I needed to discuss something important with Louisa, and that we were on our way back. I asked her to act normal and not mention our absence to anyone, especially Amanda. "I'm worried about you, Antonio," she whispered into the phone. After what Amanda said, I've never heard her talk like that before. "I know, my love, but trust me, everything will be okay. I have something important to tell you when we get there, but not over the phone." When we returned to the house, the birthday party was over. A few guests were still in the living room, including my younger brother, Jose, and his wife. Amanda was sitting on the sofa, wine glass in hand, laughing loudly at something she was saying. Bruno was beside her, his arm possessively around her shoulders. The scene seemed normal until we noticed the pitying looks the guests were giving me. "Look who's back," Amanda exclaimed when she saw me, her voice falsely cheerful. "We were worried about you, father-in-law. We thought you'd gotten lost somewhere." The condescending tone was evident, and I noticed the exchange of glances among the guests. She was already executing her plan, planting the idea that I was mentally unstable. If I'd previously been hesitant about confronting her, I was now determined. "I just needed some fresh air," I replied calmly. Louisa kindly accompanied me. "Fresh air, huh? In her law office at this hour?" Amanda laughed, turning to the others. "Bruno, dear, don't you think your father has been a little confused lately? Maybe we should schedule that appointment we talked about." Bruno looked uncomfortable, but nodded slightly. "Dad, we only want the best for you. If you feel anything strange..." "I'm feeling perfectly fine," I interrupted, smiling. In fact, I've never been so lucid. I turned to Amanda. By the way, I noticed some important documents are missing from my office. Would you know anything about that? Her smile faltered for a moment but quickly recovered. Me? Why would I know anything about your papers? Maybe you put them away somewhere and forgot, right? Maybe, I agreed, keeping my expression neutral. Well, I'm going to my office now. I have a few things I need to organize. Good evening, everyone. As I walked away, I heard Amanda whisper something to Bruno, followed by giggles. Louisa followed me into the office, closing the door behind us. She's already acting up, she commented indignantly. She's practically announced to everyone that you're senile. That's exactly what we need, I replied, turning to a picture on the wall, a photograph of me with the former governor at a school opening. I carefully removed the picture, revealing a small built-in safe. She may think she knows all my secrets, but there are some things even Bruno doesn't know. I opened the safe and took out a thick folder. Here are all the original documents for the house, including the updated registration with Bruno's name. What Amanda found in the drawer were just copies. I smiled at Louisa's surprised expression. Your old father isn't as naive as he seems. That's great, Dad, but it's not enough to unmask Amanda. No, it's not, I agreed, pulling another envelope from the safe. But this might help. I opened the envelope, revealing old photographs. Do you recognize this man? Louisa examined the photograph of a man of about 35, smiling next to a young woman in front of a beach house. No. Wait, doesn't he look familiar? Who is that? Ricardo Mendes, or Rico, as Amanda affectionately calls him. I watched understanding light up my daughter's face. He was engaged to her before he met your brother. They broke up 6 years ago, apparently because he didn't have enough money for her tastes. At least that's what Amanda told everyone. How do you know that? And why do you have pictures of him? I smiled, remembering. When Bruno first introduced Amanda, something about her bothered me. I couldn't explain it, but after a lifetime of dealing with people, I developed a certain instinct. So I did what any concerned parent would do. I hired someone to investigate her background. Dad, Louisa looked shocked. I know, I'm not proud of it, but my instincts were right. I discovered she had a pattern. She dated men with financial potential, milked them for what she could, and moved on. When she met Bruno, she saw something different, a path to a substantial inheritance. I pulled a few more photos from the envelope. In them, Amanda appeared at different times, always with different men, all seemingly financially successful. The investigator discovered that Ricardo never completely left her life. They kept in touch sporadically, but I never imagined they were still involved. Louisa flipped through the photos, impressed. So you knew she was a gold digger from the start? Why didn't you stop the wedding? I sighed deeply. I tried, subtly, talking to Bruno about getting to know the bride better, suggesting they postpone it a bit. But you know your brother. When he gets something into his head, I shook my head ruefully. Besides, I had no concrete proof of anything, just suspicions. And who am I to interfere with love? I thought maybe I was wrong, that she really did love him. And now we have evidence, and we're going to use it. I put the photos away and removed one last item from the safe, a small electronic device. Do you know what this is? Louisa examined the object. It looks like a tape recorder. Exactly. I installed discrete cameras in this office after noticing someone going through my things. The images are sent directly to this device. I connected it to my computer and opened a video file. Look what I captured 3 days ago. The video showed Amanda sneaking into the office, looking around to make sure she was alone. She went straight to the drawer I'd found open, rummaged through the documents, and took some photos with her phone. Then she grabbed what appeared to be the deed to the house and put it in her purse. Documented theft, I commented. But the most interesting part comes now. In the recording, Amanda picked up the phone and made a call. With the volume turned up, we could clearly hear, "Rico, I got the papers. The old man is even more of an idiot than we thought. He left everything in the drawer. It wasn't even locked. In 2 weeks, tops, we'll get the interdict. I spoke to that doctor you know. He'll help us with the report." She laughed. Yes, the land will be worth every penny. We just need to be patient. The plan for tomorrow's party is on. I'm going to make the old man look completely senile in front of everyone. Louisa covered her mouth with her hands in horror. My God, Dad. They're planning to interdict you with a fake medical report. Exactly. I closed the computer, feeling a strange calm. And that's why our plan needs to be executed immediately. Tomorrow might be too late. I spent the next few minutes explaining to Louisa exactly what we were going to do. It was risky, certainly, but we didn't have many options. By the time we finished planning, it was past midnight. The guests had left, and the house was quiet. "I'm going to talk to your mother now," he said. "She needs to know everything." I found Conceição in our room, sitting on the edge of the bed with a worried expression. Her eyes lit up when I entered, but soon returned to apprehension. "Antonio, what's going on? You disappear after that horrible scene, come back hours later with Louisa. Lock yourself in the office." "I'm scared." I sat down beside her, holding her hands in mine. "My love, I have something serious to tell you, and it's going to be hard to believe." For the next 40 minutes I recounted everything. The emails Louisa had discovered, Amanda and Ricardo's plan, the office recordings, even my years-old undercover investigation. Conceição listened silently, her expression changing from disbelief to horror and finally indignation. "That viper," he exclaimed finally, with a rage he rarely displayed. "All this time entering our home, eating at our table while plotting to destroy us." Tears glistened in his eyes. "And my son didn't even defend you today. Bruno is blinded by love." I tried to justify, though I also felt the pain of betrayal, or lust or whatever. "He can't see who she really is." "Then let's show him," Conceição said determinedly. "Let's show everyone." "That's exactly what we plan to do," I confirmed, explaining the strategy Louisa and I had devised. "But we need your help." For the first time that night I saw a smile appear on my wife's face. "Count me in. No one messes with my family and gets away with it." The next morning, the plan began to unfold. Conceição called Bruno early, inviting him to a family-only lunch. "Your father wants to talk about something important," she explained. "And yes, bring Amanda, of course." Louisa arrived an hour early, bringing with her a friend, Miguel, a computer technician who worked at the university. He quickly set up discreet equipment in the dining room, connecting it to the house's sound system. "All set," Miguel announced, demonstrating how the system would work. "When you give the signal, I'll press this button and the recording will play over the speakers." "Are you sure you want to do this?" "Absolutely," I replied, feeling the weight of the decision. It wasn't just about exposing Amanda. It was about saving my son, my family, and everything I'd built over decades of honest work. Bruno and Amanda arrived promptly at noon. My son seemed tense, avoiding direct eye contact. Amanda, on the other hand, wore her usual smile, but I noticed something different in her gaze, an excessive, almost predatory confidence. "Dad," Bruno began, clearly rehearsed. "First of all, I want to say that we're worried about you. Your behavior yesterday." "Let's have lunch first," Conceição interrupted, placing the bowl of feijoada on the table. "Then we'll have time to talk about everything." Lunch passed in an awkward atmosphere. Amanda and Bruno exchanged superficial conversations, forced smiles, and meaningful glances. I watched her subtly manipulate each situation, correcting my words when I supposedly misunderstood a detail, exchanging worried glances with Bruno when I forgot the name of a politician mentioned in the news. "So, Dad," Bruno said when we finished dessert, "did you want to talk about something important?" I nodded, wiping my mouth with my napkin. "Yes, son. It's about this family's future." Amanda shifted in her chair, clearly interested. Her smile widened slightly. She probably thought I was going to announce some decision about the house or other assets. "You know I've always valued honesty above all else," I began, looking directly at Amanda. "I grew up watching my father be humiliated and disrespected for being a black man in a leadership position. I learned early on that dignity is something no one can take from you, unless you allow it." Bruno looked confused, but Amanda maintained her confident smile, although her eyes narrowed slightly. "Yesterday, Amanda, you said something that really resonated with me." I kept my voice calm and controlled. "You said I was worthless. And you know, I spent the night thinking about that. Father-in-law, I was nervous. I didn't mean—" "Please let me finish," I interrupted gently. "As I was saying, I've thought long and hard, and I've come to the conclusion that you're partially right. To someone like you, I'm truly worthless, because people like you measure value by the zeros in your bank account, the size of your property, the potential profit you can extract from others." Her smile began to falter. Bruno shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Dad, I think you're overreacting." Amanda would never. Bruno, I interrupted again. What would you say if I told you that your wife has a lover, that she plans to take this house away from us, legally interdict me with a false medical report, and sell the land to a developer? The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda paled visibly but soon recovered. That's absurd, he exclaimed, forcing a laugh. Bruno, your father is clearly confused. That's exactly what we talked about. He needs medical help. Do you really think I'm confused? I asked calmly, giving Miguel a discreet nod. Then perhaps we should hear your own words. The next moment, Amanda's voice filled the room through the speakers. Rico, I got the papers. The old man is even more of an idiot than we thought. He left everything in the drawer, it wasn't even locked. In 2 weeks tops we can get the injunction. Amanda's face turned into a mask of horror as the recording continued. Bruno looked from her to me in disbelief. This is a setup, Amanda screamed when the recording ended. They're manipulating my voice. Bruno, you're not going to believe this, are you? There's more, Louisa said, entering the room with her laptop. She placed it on the table, showing the screen to Bruno. These are the emails between Amanda and Ricardo Mendez, or Rico as she calls him. They've been planning this for months. Bruno read the emails with an increasingly devastated expression. No, it can't be true. Unfortunately it is, son, he said, placing his hand on his shoulder. And there's more. Over the next hour we presented all the evidence. The photos from the old investigation showing Amanda's pattern of behavior, the office recordings, the stolen documents Louisa had retrieved from Amanda's purse when she went to the bathroom during lunch. Amanda alternated between vehemently denying it and attacking us all. This is a conspiracy. You've never liked me. You're making this all up because you can't stand to see Bruno happy. Happy? Bruno repeated, finally finding his voice. His eyes were watery. Was it all a lie? Every moment, every word? All a lie? Bruno, love, don't believe them. They're manipulating you, can't you see? Your father is senile. Your sister has always hated me. And your mother does everything they tell her to do. Senile enough to record you confessing your plans? I replied calmly. Or perhaps senile enough to preserve evidence for years, anticipating this moment. That's when Bruno, in a sudden movement, grabbed Amanda's cell phone from the table. Before she could react, he was checking messages, emails, and photos. The password, he muttered, surprised that he could access it so easily. It's my birthday, Amanda replied automatically, only to realize her mistake. Bruno, please, this is an invasion of privacy. Too late. My son's face contorted in a mixture of pain and anger as he scrolled. Photos. Dozens of photos of you with this man. Recent ones. At the beach. In hotels. His voice trailed off. There's one from last night. After I went out to buy medicine for the headache you said you had. I can explain. Amanda tried, her voice now desperate. It's not what it looks like. Then explain. Bruno's voice sounded surprisingly firm. Explain why you have messages arranging the sale of this house. Explain why you're talking to a doctor about false reports to interdict my father. Explain why you have intimate photos with another man dated last night when you were supposedly having a migraine in our bed. The silence that followed was her condemnation. Amanda looked frantically at each of us like a cornered animal. You don't understand, she said finally, abandoning her denials. Your family never truly accepted me. They always treated me as inferior for not having the same upbringing, for not being, she hesitated. Because you're not black like us? I added, remaining calm. Funny, we never mentioned race at any point. You were welcomed into this family with open arms, Amanda. What we don't accept is dishonesty, manipulation, and betrayal. I want you to leave, Bruno said, standing up. His face was wet with tears, but his voice didn't tremble. Now. Bruno, you can't be serious. Where am I going to stay? All my stuff is at your house. In our house, he corrected, which you plan to sell without my consent. You can take your clothes and personal belongings. We'll discuss the rest through lawyers. Lawyers? Amanda looked genuinely shocked. You're leaving me? Because of this ridiculous setup from your family? Bruno held up her phone. Does this sound like a setup to you? Your own words, your own photos? Or are you going to say someone hacked into your phone and planted all this? Amanda looked at us all, one by one. Her face transformed, the mask of innocence giving way to an expression of pure hatred. You're going to regret this. All of you. Especially you, old man. Maybe, I replied, meeting his eyes. but at least we'll be together as a family to overcome any hardship. You, on the other hand, will be alone. Because I'm sure your lover Ricardo won't be too interested when he finds out the plan failed, and there will be no valuable land to sell." As if to confirm my words, Amanda's cell phone vibrated with a message. Bruno, still holding the phone, read aloud. "So, did you get it? Has the old man signed the power of attorney yet? I'm looking forward to starting our life together away from this pathetic family. Kisses, Rico." It was the final blow. Amanda grabbed her bag and stormed out, not without first giving us all one last hateful look. "This isn't over," she threatened from the doorway. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "On the contrary," Louisa replied. "Now we know exactly who we were dealing with." After Amanda left, Bruno collapsed in his chair, devastated. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed any of this? I sat down beside him, putting my arm around his shoulders. "Love sometimes blinds us, son. Don't blame yourself. She's a professional manipulator. But you tried to warn me. You all did in some way. And I ignored you. I thought you were being prejudiced, old-fashioned. The important thing is that we discovered the truth before it was too late." Conceição consoled, sitting on the other side. "Now we can start over. As a family." The following weeks were difficult. Bruno began divorce proceedings, facing Amanda's threats and blackmail. As expected, Ricardo disappeared as soon as he realized the plan had failed, confirming our suspicions that his only interest was the money they could extort from the family. Amanda tried to spread rumors about my supposed senility among friends and neighbors, but the evidence we had against her was so overwhelming that no one believed her accusations, especially after Bruno, in an act of courage, publicly exposed some of the messages exchanged between her and Ricardo, making clear to everyone the character of the woman he had married. 3 months after the confrontation, we were all gathered in the same dining room again. Me, Conceição, Louisa, and Bruno. It was my 59th birthday, an intimate celebration, just family. The divorce had been finalized the week before, thanks to irrefutable evidence of adultery and attempted fraud. "A toast," Bruno proposed, raising his glass, "to the wisest father anyone could ever have, the man who saved not only our home and our heritage, but most importantly, our family. And the truth," Louisa added, "that always finds a way to surface." I looked at the people I loved most in the world gathered around that table and felt a deep sense of gratitude. The public humiliation I suffered that fateful night, when Amanda declared me worthless, had turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It was the trigger that allowed us to discover the truth before it was too late. "You know," he said after everyone had toasted, "all my life I've faced people who have tried to belittle me, for being black, for being of humble origin, for standing up for my principles. But I've always known my true worth. It's something no one can take away from us unless we allow it." Bruno nodded, his eyes reflecting a new, hard-won wisdom. "I learned this the hard way, Dad, and I promised never to forget it." That night, as I watched my family chatting animatedly in the living room, I realized that ironically Amanda had given me a priceless gift. By trying to destroy me, she had inadvertently strengthened the bonds that bound us together. Her plan to divide and conquer us had failed completely. We were closer than ever. And what of those cruel words, "You're worthless," that once cut the air like a razor? They now seemed so small, so insignificant, because my worth was never in the material possessions I built, the properties I acquired, or the money I saved. My true value was always in the character I demonstrated, the principles I upheld, and the love I gave and received from my family. That night the truth not only came out, it triumphed, restoring not only my dignity but also the integrity of our entire family.